Welcome to today's Sticky Learning Lunch with myself, Nathan Simmonds, Senior Leadership Coach and Trainer for MBM. I'm joined today by Andy Palmer, Resident Expert on Category Management. And the idea of these training sessions is to help you be the best version of you in the work that you do. And whether you're at home or returning to work or preparing to return to work, it's about pushing this thinking. It's about helping you take your business to the next level. And as we are the leadership development and soft skills provider to the UK grocery and manufacturing industry, it's right that we talk about category management. Andy, these next 7 sessions, they're all yours, and you're going to take us through this. Please, take over and let's see what category management is all about and how it can help these people.
Lovely. Thank you, Nathan. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to be sharing this content with you. Over the coming days, we're going to take you through our 7-step category management process. Session each day, looking at each different stage of the funnel, bringing it to life. Now, to manage expectations, I guess we're only going to be scratching the surface, but hopefully leaving you hungry to want to reach out to us afterwards and learn more, learn how we can support you with category management. So starting with that, what is category management? It's one of these topics that's been wrapped up quite heavily and shrouded in a dark mist of jargon and complicated terminology. In essence, it's about helping you as a business to be able to identify more opportunities, sell opportunities, and land those opportunities in store. The crux of category management is really about suppliers working in partnership with retailers and making sure the consumers, the shoppers' needs are at the heart of any decisions that are made. So whereas we see our account managers taking care of a certain slice of the pie, we have our category managers that are there to take care of the whole pie. So as category management has developed over the years, where it's first started in its inception back in the 1990s, for me, this is really now about a business as usual principle, not something that's dipped into once every 6 months where people lock themselves in dark war rooms and generate 1,000,001 different spreadsheets. It's actually about a very simple, structured approach that we're going to come to, but helping you be able to identify more opportunities. So we're going to talk you through our funnel. We're largely going to do a brief introduction to the funnel in a moment, and then helping you understand what each of those different areas look like. So it's about agreeing category targets at the top. We're going to talk about that a little bit more today. About keeping the shopper at the heart of our decisions. We'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow. Then around understanding and knowing the channels that you're in, so what supermarket or particular retailer that you're focusing your efforts. Then getting into the good stuff, getting into identifying opportunities. They're going to come from lots of different areas. With category management, it's very, very data driven. So often we can get lost in that, and we're going to help you to not get lost in that, but around identifying the opportunities. Then it's about selling those opportunities effectively, landing those opportunities in store, and then coming back around our funnel, evaluating, improving, ensure that you've got this consistency and we've got this cycle going on. Okay, so we're talking about our funnel here, and we've got these 7 steps that I briefly covered. As I said, we're going to work through each of those different areas over the next 7 days. We're going to start today with agreeing category opportunities. So more often than not, we work with clients and they're busy doing category management in a way that they've already done it. Recently, we started working with a client and they said, yeah, we've got all this data, we've got all this information, we're at the beck and call of the buyer. And I said to them, okay, great. So what are you looking to achieve with your category? And they said, well, whatever the buyer tells us to do, we will do it. Whatever opportunities pop up, we will make them happen. And if we spot some along the way ourselves, we'll get those landed as well. And that's fine. That's not necessarily the wrong way. Where we tried to steer them to was actually, if they have a single, absolute, clarified target, all of the efforts are then focused on achieving that. And it's not this scattergun approach that they seem to be working towards. It's far more sniper rifle. It's there. We've got our category target, and we're going to go after that. That then means all the time and the resources and the efforts they put in are focused on achieving one thing. And that doesn't mean to say that category target can't change, and it will, of course, adapt and develop. But actually, once you've got that category target, it then allows a far more joined up approach to take place and not just becoming kind of quite reactive. As I mentioned earlier, category management, very, very data driven. It's often the case that we can get sucked into this black hole of data, stuck on what we class as the PowerPoint treadmill of churning out presentation after presentation, category review after category review, and it's all just information give as opposed to leading and working towards achieving something that's been predefined. So we want to spend today looking at agreeing category targets. I've got a couple of things that I'll share with you. Of course, it's a very big topic, but actually, if you've got a couple of things you could take away today that kind of gets you thinking a little bit differently, then jobs are good. So the first thing I wanted to share with you, and again, I mentioned that category management is often shrouded in jargon and various different acronyms and complicated language. I'm going to do that now, which kind of almost makes me sound a little bit hypocritical. But actually, let's try and keep it in simple, plain language. Here's an opportunity that you could take to develop your own category target. So we call this WOP, FOP, or PEN. Effectively, it's weight of purchase, frequency of purchase, or penetration. Now, to bring that out into that true kind of simple language, weight of purchase is how much people are spending on the products they're buying. It's that difference between getting them to buy 99p a pack of tomatoes or trying to trade them up to a £1.49 pack of tomatoes, and we can increase their weight of purchase. Or we could go after their frequency, how often they're buying. Are they buying once a month, twice a month, once a year, 5 times a year? And again, we can start to increase their frequency of purchase. Or penetration. Again, bringing it back into very simple language is how many shoppers have we got buying this? What's the percentage of our customer base, or what's the percentage of the population who are buying this? So whether it's weight of purchase, how much they're buying, how much they're spending, how often they're buying, or how many shoppers we've got, we could pick one of these particular areas and then target all of our efforts towards it. If it is penetration, we want to attract more shoppers. We maybe want to attract some lapsed shoppers.
So if we're not clear at the beginning of the funnel where we're going as a business and where we're going as an organisation, the consumer isn't going to know, or let alone the buyer or the consumer isn't going to actually know what we're actually trying to achieve with that.
So typically you have, that's not an egg, it's going to be a pie chart in a minute, but typically you have a category. And within the category, there's a number of products that sit within it. Within most businesses, they will then have an account manager, and that particular business will supply a certain proportion of the products to that particular category. It's very rare that a category has one supplier supplying everything. It does happen. Most categories have a number of suppliers working in, and they have a different proportion of the business with some overlap and some dual supply of certain products. Typically then what sits here is an account manager that's taking care of the slice of the pie. And that account manager has various opportunities over the year to grow the business. It could be through an increase in distribution of their particular products, or it could be because they were successful at winning some new business, maybe through a tender or whatever other. There it is. But typically we see that the account manager can gain or lose between 5 and 15% of the pie on average. So they're there within their business trying to grow their own business. And then you've got the category managers. The category managers are not only responsible for this portion of the pie, but they're responsible for the entire pie. Sometimes they supply those products, sometimes their competitor does. The important bit is they're trying to grow the pie. And if they successfully grow that pie, the opportunity for their business is huge. And yes, of course, they may benefit their competitors at the same time, but it's a win-win. The opportunities that exist here for their own business will eclipse that increase that the account manager potentially gets. Now, it's controversial because typically the power and the importance sits with the account managers. My challenge back to many suppliers is how much time and effort do we put into category management? Because if our category managers are doing their job well, the opportunities are significant. There are loads of different ways of calculating the size of the prize. You can come at it from a bunch of different ways. What I won't do is kind of go down into too low level of detail and start talking about the various actual calculations that you can do. My suggestion would be, if you're unsure on how to or where to look for your category target, is to start with hypotheses, not necessarily starting with the data. So if you start with hypotheses that says, I believe my category has less shoppers than it did a year ago. I believe my availability is worse than it was 6 months ago. I believe there are better opportunities in new product or existing product development. Develop all those hypotheses that you've got and then test them. Test them part with data, which would be the quantitative stuff, or you may need to look at it from a more qualitative point of view, visit some stores, get out there. Once you've got a better understanding of whether your hypotheses are right or wrong, they will then in turn start to generate various opportunities. You can then start to calculate the size of those opportunities. That then allows you to then prioritize the time and the efforts you've got. It. Quick one. Let me see if this will work. Simple Boston matrix, we're very familiar with those. If I've got big opportunities in terms of the value, not so much. Can I implement it now, or is it going to take me 6 years? I develop those hypotheses, prove them right or wrong, and I can then start thinking that's worth a lot, and it's going to take a reasonable amount of time. That's not worth as much, but I can get it done now. That's worth a lot, but it's going to take me 6 years. You can start to plot your various opportunities. You then know that it's these bigger, quicker to land opportunities, the way you should be putting your time and effort in. And you basically start to filter this stuff down to get you to a place of going, right, we are going after that opportunity there. We know it's worth 2 million quid. We know we're going to get it landed within 12 months. All of my time and efforts are going to start to work towards achieving that. We've got our category target. Today we're going to be talking about understanding the shopper. I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted on this. Keeping the shopper at the heart of our decision is absolutely paramount to everything we do within category management. There is no good us making decisions on our range, our promotional plan, the products we've got out there, and the myriad of other levers and buttons that we can push and pull if we're not considering who the end user is. And effectively, that's us. We are the people that push trolleys, carry baskets, pick things up off the shelves, and yet too often we kind of put them over here and leave them out of our decision-making process. So it's absolutely key that we keep ourselves and the rest of those people that are out there purchasing at the core of what we're talking about. I want to offer you an alternative that allows you then to consider some other areas. So I'm going to introduce the concept of the shopper, the preparer, and the eater. There's 3 different groups. Again, they can sometimes be one and the same thing, but if we consider our shopper, preparer, and eater, those who are buying it, those who are preparing it, and those who are eating it, we can then start to make some seriously powerful informed decisions on the stuff that we try to do. So let's not just think about the shopper, let's also consider those other groups. Bringing that to life for a moment then, what do we mean by the shopper, preparer, and eater? Pretty, stick him over there. Shopper, preparer, and eater, what do we mean by that? So the shopper, it's us. We're out in the supermarket, my wife will send me to the shops and she'll say, can you go and pick up some pack of fish fingers? I'm the shopper, I'm buying those fish fingers, I'm looking for all the right cues in the store to entice me to pick up a certain pack. It's going to be around price, packaging, what's in it, if it's added extra omega-3 or something like that. They're the things that are going to entice me to make that purchase decision. I'm then coming back, fish fingers, maybe hand them off to my wife, maybe I'm going to be the cooker, but I'm going to be the preparer for that particular meal. So I'm taking my fish fingers, and of course I'm adding some additional elements to it. Am I then the eater? I may be, not against eating fish fingers, but it could be for my daughter. She's 8 years old, she loves fish fingers, so we're going to cook her fish fingers, maybe some mashed potatoes, some other stuff that goes with it. She's the eater. We are then 3 potentially very distinct groups, and on this occasion, maybe they don't overlap. One person's shopping, one person's cooking or preparing, another person's eating. And yet, at other times, the shopper, the preparer, and eater could be the same person. The important thing to take from that is how can we consider the decisions that we're making to more better influence, more importantly, understand those 3 different areas. So shopper, preparer, and eater, consider those and then consider what you can do differently as a result of really fully understanding them. Some of the kind of language that's typically used in category management, so things called pen portraits, which is almost that point where you've said it, who are our ideal shoppers, who are our core shoppers, who are the shoppers that we wanted to go after. And if we can create that pen portrait of who they actually are, we can bring them to life. Miss Selfridges did this absolutely brilliantly. Back in the day, they would have a big cardboard cutout that was at the front of their head office. So as the buyers walked in every day to do their job, there was a cardboard cutout of their ideal shopper, who she was, her age group, how much disposable spend she had, what her hobbies and interests were, and a whole list of additional appropriate elements that kept their core shopper at the front of their mind. So as they were making buying decisions, product development decisions, they knew who their shopper was. Absolutely, it's keeping them there. And to get to that, you know what, we can invest tens of thousands of pounds in qualitative consumer groups, focus groups to understand that, which is good. We've got a real solid understanding there. And at the same time, we can get out ourselves, out into store, and observe the things that are going on. We can talk to those people out there. You know, sometimes we need permission to do this stuff, but to get out and say, hey, excuse me, I've just noticed you picked up that pack of tomatoes. What's behind your decision? What are you using it for? Are you okay if I ask you these questions? Just to get some vox pops, to get some initial insight that we can then go off and validate at a more robust level. Once we've got that information, we can then start making some seriously brilliantly informed decisions. And some of the smallest observations can lead to the most powerful insights and then the most significant, important recommendations. If I kind of cast my mind back, and I'm probably going to go back about 15, 20 years now, we were doing a load of research again in fresh produce, because a lot of that is my background, and we were watching shoppers interact with avocados. And you know, what are you buying that for? Oh, I'm going to be buying it because I'm going to put it with some bacon and some brie, and I'm going to make a sandwich, or I'm going to be using it for this, and I'm going to be putting it in my salad. And suddenly it dawned on us that avocados weren't being brought because they were a fruit, which is where they were living at the time, but they were being bought because they were being used as part of a meal that typically, or more often than not, was involved in a salad. So suddenly we kind of had this brainwave and went, hang on a minute, we're merchandising avocados because it's a fruit with the other fruit, but it's not brought as a fruit. Why don't we pick up avocados and start merchandising them with the salads, which is where you will now find them, I think in pretty much all retailers now, if not all of them now, because that is a true shopper decision-making hierarchy. People want to go and buy avocados. They're not going to go and look by my other exotic fruit. I go and look by pineapples. I'm sure I'm going to find them next to the coconuts. But you now expect to find your avocados in the salad fixture along with the other salad vegetables. Overnight, sales doubled, rock and roll, everyone's a winner. Consumers get what they want and can find it where they expect to, and you can improve sales. And just that simple observational stuff can lead to changes literally overnight.
Just in conclusion, what are the key elements that you need to be including, or people need to be including, when we're looking at understanding the shopper then?
I think a great place to start is this stuff here, that there are not just one type of shopper. And we can get into the semantics of shopper, consumer, user. I think for the challenge will always be, you've got to find appropriate wording for your business. Consumer seems to be the one that's historically been used but doesn't fit many categories. You know, consumer doesn't fit the washing detergent category very much. We don't consume, per se, our washing powder. We could use words like chooser and user, but actually just keeping it very simple. Who the shopper, the preparer of the eats becomes super powerful. Then understanding what they actually want, what they need, and getting into the crux of real world is super powerful. Terry Leahy, when he was the marketing director for Tesco's before he was running the show, was interviewed once, and someone said to him, you seem to always win all of the arguments and all of the debates and all of the discussions in the boardroom. Why is that? And he says, well, I'm the marketing director. I have the voice of the shopper. That's not open for challenge. And what he was basically saying is that every rationale and thought that he had was backed up by consumer understanding, consumer needs, shopper needs. And in which case, that's not open for challenge, because that's what's actually is needed. Today, we're continuing down, and stage 3, we are looking at knowing your supermarket or knowing your channel, depending upon the market you're in. So this one, kind of on face value, is pretty almost self-explanatory. The bit I want to just try and take thinking a little bit further, that actually, if you've got an alignment of the recommendations that you want to make and you're not getting them over the line, it's about making sure that you understand your supermarket as well as you can, that you're then making recommendations that are aligned with their thinking and that's in line with the buyer's KPIs, to ensure that you're just setting yourself up for success. we've seen it so many times that we've seen suppliers going in and they're making recommendations that suit their business. Sometimes they suit the customer, shopper, the preparer, the eater, but what they're not doing is fitting perfectly with that corporate requirement or that need that the buyer has. And the buyer, when we're talking about the buyer, we're talking about the person sat in the retailer's head office making the decision, responsible for these purchasing decisions. So all of the recommendations we want to make sure they're absolutely aligned with what they need. Now, I've seen this before where a supplier was trying to drive, spend into the category. They're trying to trade people up and move them up through various tiers, trying to expand weight of purchase, weight of consumption, and all the recommendations were aligned to achieving that. That was their target. The challenge that they had was that the supermarket was trying to really push through a period of value for money. They were trying to almost kind of position themselves in the market that they had good value for money, and actually how they were trying to set up and manage their particular area was looking to achieve those things. So in one hand we've got let's drive value for money, in the other hand we've got the supplier trying to drive spend, and as you can imagine there was a conflict. As the suppliers were coming in, or the supplier was coming in and making their presentations and their recommendations, it was no, doesn't work, not going to work for us right now, maybe one for the future, etc., etc., etc. You may have experienced these pushbacks and these challenges. You go without saying that you're going to be attending conferences, whether that's ones run by the retailer or run by someone like the IGD, who do some superb conferences each year to get really into the importance of that particular retailer strategy. You could do something very, very pragmatic and set up something like Google Alerts, where every day or every week, you could dictate this yourself, every day or every week, you would get an alert come through to your inbox, giving you the most up-to-date relevant news that's coming out of them. So if they're issuing press releases and they're making statements in the media to the city or what have you, you can ensure you're at the absolute forefront of that. Likewise, in the UK, we've got something called Cam City, where we get key account management news that's collated from various different data sources. And again, you can have something like that delivered to your inbox, so you're absolutely at the forefront of knowing what's going on out there. But putting it under the heading of observation, insight, and recommendation can just allow the audience, whoever that person is or group of people is, to quite clearly and quickly see the stages that you're taking, the process that you went through, right through to, hey, I get the recommendation because I've got the backup behind it. Does that make sense? We are now moving down into the fourth stage of our funnel. This is around turning analysis and understanding into opportunities. So this is where the fun, sexy stuff happens. We, back in the last week, talked about green category targets and more better understanding our shopper. Yesterday, we covered understanding our channel or our supermarket. Today, we're getting into turning analysis from all those various data sources and information that we have, turning those things into opportunities. Then for the next few days, we'll then figure out how we can sell those opportunities, land those opportunities in store, and close off our funnel by taking some learnings back. That's what today's about. So it's taking all of the information that we've got, and right now out in the world there is a ton of data. We know that. Qualitative data, quantitative data, and typically we see most category managers and category analysts get lost in the data. There is just such a volume of it. They jump into the data and effectively we look at it, it's a bit like a black hole. They just kind of get sucked into this thing, and then their time is spent generating charts and tables and graphs and hundreds of these various different pages. But actually what we're really looking to do is challenge the people we work with to come up with insight, true insight that leads to recommendation. We talked about it yesterday. Less is absolutely more. It's not about presenting a nice big deck. It is about presenting real hard, powerful category management opportunities that can drive a category forward. I've got a huge toolbox of techniques and calculations and formulas and things like that. Now, we're not going to be able to cover all of those, so I've got a sample that we can share with you today. If you're hungry for this and you want to know more because this is an area where maybe you want to improve on, then hey, let's start that conversation later on this afternoon. More than happy to kind of explore that with you to ensure that you're getting this bit right, because getting this bit right just means everything we do with our category management is underpinned with solid data, powerful recommendations. Typically with all the data sources that are out there, and we'll start naming some of the really big ones, Kantar Market Panel, Nielsen data, all the way through to our qualitative data of the different focus groups or shopper interviews that we could do. typically with the majority of data, we look retrospectively at what's happened. Let's look back at the last 4 weeks. Let's look back at the last quarter, the last half year, the last year. So we're always looking back at our data. And again, another one for people to kind of take away the concept of actually, why not look forward and do what we class as future forecasting? If you've got a block of data in Excel, there is nothing stopping you from highlighting that block of data. If it's set out on time across the top, various rows, and then maybe they're all your SKU level data, there's nothing stopping you highlighting a chunk of data and dragging it out. Now, but dragging it out, Excel will automatically forecast what could potentially happen. We can use that with a kind of, being mindful of the data source that we've got, but we could use that to consider what's happening. Are we going to start seeing a downward trend in a certain set of products? Are we going to start seeing an upward trend in a certain set of products? So for me, data isn't just about looking retrospectively, it's about looking at what could be coming around the corner, what's on the horizon, starting to then factor into things like weather, because we know that has a massive impact, promotions, new products coming in, products going out, increasing distribution, big long list, of course. We're starting then to figure out where the opportunities certainly lie. So it's not always about looking backwards. Sometimes looking forward can be equally, if not more, valuable. I thought I'd share this one with you because it's powerful. It's a simple calculation that anyone can run on the category with just a few bits of data. So this, again, seems to wrap things up in lots of 3-letter acronyms. This one's called C.D.I, Category Development Index. Again, I like to just bring it out into fair and plain English. So I call this the fair share calculation. If, for example, you have the market share of your category and you have the market share of the particular retailer in, you can figure out whether you are under trading or over trading based on the value of your category to then figure out the opportunity size that you've got or that you need to protect. This is a great place to start to almost get that top level analysis of, do we have an opportunity versus do we have something that we need to look after and nurture and protect because we're already outperforming. It's a good place to start as well, because any category, and there's a slight caveat to that, but any category should have equal market share to their retailer's market share. Let me give an example. Pick a category for me, Nathan.
Baked beans. I think we talked about this before. Let's go there.
Okay, so let's say baked beans is our category. Baked beans in this particular retailer has a market share of 17%. I'm gonna make some numbers up. Pick me an outlet, or you could make me out. Let's call it Nathan's Stores. There we go.
Yep, we'll go with that.
Nathan's Stores. Nathan's Stores has market share of 20%. And what we mean here is that for every pound that's spent on food retailing in the UK, 20p goes through Nathan's Stores. So they have 20% market share. So they own 20% of that entire food market. For their baked bean category, only 17p of every pound spent in the UK goes through Nathan's Stores. So we can instantly see, actually, we've got an opportunity here, because there is no reason why Nathan's Stores shouldn't have, for baked beans, shouldn't have a market share of 20%. So trying to achieve what we know is possible. The caveat I mentioned earlier is you will always have certain retailers that overtrade or undertrade in certain areas based on their demographics. So come back to that in a minute. A couple of examples. Our slightly more upmarket retailers, let's say Waitrose or M&S, will always overtrade a little bit more in products like avocados or fine wines, whereas our slightly more mass appeal retailers may undertrade in those particular areas. And then the reverse would be true. So Waitrose, for example, will probably, although I can't prove it to you right now, will probably undertrade in something like frozen frying chips, but they would probably do quite well with fresh, sliced, nicely salted potatoes in a pre-prepared area. So we will always have certain undertrades and overtrades, but as a rule, most categories should be able to achieve parity with their total market share. Is that making sense so far?
Yep.
Nathan's nodding. Some other people are nodding. I can't see him. Okay, so let's take this. So 17% baked bean market share, 20% market share for Nathan's Stores. If we divide one by the other, that should give us an index of 0.94. So that's our category development index. If we then take the value of Nathan's baked bean sales in Nathan's Stores, let's say they're 180 million. Good category there, Nathan. Good work. Doing well there.
I'm in the wrong job.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, 180 million divided by 0.94 minus 180 million will get our opportunity size. Quick calculation in my head. Check out your calculators if you want. We've got an £11.5 million opportunity from moving our market share for baked beans from 17% up to 20%, because we know that's possible, because as an average, that's what he's achieving within the market. Once I've got this, I've already got my value. I can then start to figure out how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to start looking at things like range, availability, promotions. I might look at a gap analysis to see if I've got the same amount of products as other comparable retailers, or a whole host of other areas. The interesting point was I started with, and I've calculated a value. Once I've got that value, I can figure out if that's big enough for me to go after, or if it was the other way around, and so this was 25%, I might have a £6 million opportunity that I need to protect, because other retailers are going to be coming after those sales and be trying to draw my shoppers away into their stores. Let me pause for a second. Is that making sense, Nathan? Today, Nathan, good afternoon. Today we're covering selling those opportunities. So building on everything we've done back end of last week, beginning of this week, got our targets, we understand our shopper, we've got a good handle on the channel that we're presenting to, we've analysed all our data, and we pulled together our very succinct presentation. So today's about making that stuff land with the buyer, the person sat at head office, that buyer. I'll share one thing straight away with you. About 4 years ago, the IGD ran an industry survey, and part of this capability and partnership survey, it said that too often trust is the single biggest barrier to getting proposals into action. It comes back to trust. I've mentioned it a little bit in the last few days. I've certainly talked about credibility. So today I want to really bring to life what trust is about, for you then to consider, how trustworthy am I? How trustworthy is my team? Could this be one of the reasons why we're not getting our recommendations across the line? We're not as influential as we could be. So we're going to talk about trust in true blue left brain style. I'm going to bring this to life using the medium of a formula. So bear with me as I lovingly create it up here and then hopefully explain it in a way that really resonates with you. So let's talk about trust. Trust is what you need with the buyer. It's what you need with colleagues that you work with. It's what you need with your partners, your friends, your family. Because if you're trustworthy, you are far more likely to get what you want when you want it in an appropriate way. So in order for you to have trust, there are 3 component parts to this. The first one, credibility. Credibility. Let's stick to the kind of world of category management at the moment. So credibility, this is going to come from the knowledge that you've got, the experience that you've got, the things that you say and do, and the way in which you communicate, the understanding you've got of the category. So if you've got credibility, you are far more likely to have a high level of trust. So first one's credibility. Making sense? Thumbs up, Nathan? Good, 2 thumbs up, loving it. Credibility. Second one, reliability. Reliability is about the commitments that you give and how you follow up on them. So if you say, yes, I'm going to get you that report by 5 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, and they don't get it until 11 o'clock on Friday evening, they will see you as less reliable. So it's about the commitments that you give, the deadlines that you commit to, and it's really about helping them to see that if you say and you're going to commit to do something, that you're reliable enough to ensure that it absolutely happens. So we've got credibility, reliability, and the third part, just going to fit it in next to where my head's going to be, intimacy, appropriate intimacy. This is how well you know the person, how well the person knows you. So if you take those times at the appropriate moment to discuss something you may have in common, that could be going running or swimming or an interest in a certain sport or activity that you do, if you have those connections, you have intimacy, appropriate intimacy, you get to know people. You consider those people in your world, either professionally or personally, who you trust, and those who you don't trust. I can pretty much guarantee that you will typically put it back to one of these 3 factors as to whether you've got high trust or you'd like more trust. Making sense so far, Nathan? Credibility, reliability, and intimacy. Okay, there are numerators are below the line part, something called self-orientation. I'm going to simply sum this up as ego. It's how much you talk about yourself versus how much you're prepared to listen to others. So for example, if I came into these webinars and I was only talking about all the experience I've got, how great the company, how great a company we are, how marvelous I am, how nice my shirt is, and I talk about only about me, I could come across potentially as being rather egotistical. If I take time to interact with my audience, ask them how they are, how they're feeling, what they're up to, what's on their mind at the moment, I can balance that ego off and make it less about me and more about them getting that balance. So no matter how good you are at the credibility, reliability and intimacy part, that can be diluted if you have a big ego and your self-orientation is very, very only about you. So for you, my challenge back today is to consider those 4 areas, both for yourself initially. I don't know, rank them out of 10. Am I a 9 out of 10 here, a 4 out of 10 here, a 6 out of 10 here, 0 out of 10 here? Start to figure out where you could potentially increase your trust by dialing up or dialing down certain parts of this formula. We are covering landing those opportunities in store. So it builds, as this funnel continually does, our targets, shoppers, our stores, our insights and recommendations, selling it through to landing it. So today's about landing it. It's about that last 100 yards and ensuring that all that time and effort and analysis we put in actually hits the shelves and hits the shelves right. So for me, landing opportunities in store, why the funnel flows, is largely about preparation. What we're trying to ensure happens is that those recommendations that you make to the buyers, that you've sold to the buyers, don't just look good on paper, that they actually can work in store and then giving them sustainability for the future. Now, I'm going to share another little model, why not? We looked at the staircase the other day. This is another staircase. I seem to like staircases and 3-letter acronyms this week. This is effectively the staircase of learning. Some of you may well be familiar with it, but actually I think it works really well for this particular topic as well. Let me draw this up. Got these 2 areas here. Not a big fan of this word, but it'll make sense. Unconscious incompetence. It's the things that we don't know. And this is typically, or can typically be, the area that some category managers tend to reside in. They don't know what they don't know. Sometimes getting out to store can help that. I often think about this as my 8-year-old. She doesn't know she can't drive. She sees Daddy get in the car, do some stuff like this, do some stuff like this, move his hands in the car, get from A to B. She has no idea she couldn't jump in that seat and do it. Over time, we move then into conscious incompetence. So you start to become aware of the things that you know you can't do. Sometimes just getting out to store and going, you know what, hadn't appreciated that. Love's example. It's a great place to start. So for me, this was my son probably a few years ago when he started asking these questions. He was getting slightly closer to taking that first driving lesson, and he started asking, put your feet up so you don't know that. What's that button for? What's that lever do? How are you getting the car to do that thing? And he moved from, I don't know, I can't do it, through to, my God, I know, I can't actually do that. I'm going to need some lessons. Absolutely. He then starts taking some lessons and he moves into conscious competence. He is now aware he can do it. Over time, and if to ask anyone in the room who's done a drive recently and to ask you how many gear changes you make, providing you've got a manual car, you're not going to know because you're doing that stuff unconsciously. So you then move into unconscious competence. And it's about taking our category managers or ourselves on this journey through, don't know what I don't know, to now I know what I don't know, through to now I can do it, and then finally making this stuff just automatic. So we're not just sitting behind spreadsheets, we're spending some time in store, and we're now unconsciously competent on that new level of knowledge that we've got. Yeah, there's a little bit of recycling that typically happens up here. I guess sticking with our driving analogy, it's maybe moving from a manual car to an automatic or vice versa. We have a little bit of relearning to do. That's cool. That's a sort of part of continuous improvement. The important thing is to move that way up our staircase. Absolutely, and that leads perfectly onto my suggestion. I think it's exactly doing that. Speak to your buyer, speak to your local supermarket store manager. You sometimes need to get permission to do that. You can't just rock up in store and start speaking to colleagues or customers. Get that permission appropriately, and then coming back to where we were the other day, I'm talking about hippos or hypotheses. Before you go in, consider yourself some. Start those with I believe. I believe that I can drive more sales by better understanding the store ordering system. Or I believe I can learn 3 pieces of new product development by replenishing my category for half a day. I believe I can learn some stuff about my category by replenishing another category in the store. And the list goes on, considering around how does the store manage waste, how do they manage arrivals, how do they take those arrivals to restocking, what can you do to help visibility of new products, or stores locate certain products. There's a whole host, massive list. Consider the ones that are right and relevant for you. Start with I believe that, and then go in stores and start proving or disproving them. I think it's super powerful and will just help ensure that the opportunities that you make that are great on paper land in store and are there for the foreseeable future, driving sales and profit. And we are closing the circle on our funnel. So we previously talked about agreeing category targets, understanding the shopper, understanding our channel, turning data and analysis into insights and recommendations, selling those opportunities and landing those opportunities. We're now going to go all the way back round with evaluate and improve. A key part to any project or anything that we ever do, yet is so often overlooked because we're on what we class as the PowerPoint treadmill, that we just jump straight off one project or straight out of one presentation into another. I want to share this tool with you. That's perfect. P.M.I. Typically, as I said, we move from project to project, presentation to presentation, maybe not taking that time to figure out what good, great, better, could have been worse. Getting those kind of learnings. We are all about continuous improvement. We think this is a terrific tool that you can use in the moment for pretty much any situation. So, for example, with our category management, we could use this to evaluate a sell when we've been in to see the buyer and we're putting our recommendations. We could then do this quick evaluation afterwards, or we could do it right at the top and say, right, let's have a quick look at our agreeing category targets. What can we learn from that? So this tool works very, very simply, but yet super powerfully by understanding what was positive, what was the things that were really good. We can make some notes on what was good, got the category target, came up with it really, really quickly, it's tangible, it's smart, and we can start to pull all those positive learnings out. We could look at them from a minus point of view. What was not so good? It took us a long time to get there, actually. We had to kind of go around the circles a few times. Next time, let's not do that. Let's start with our end in mind first and work backwards. And again, we're listing all the things that weren't so great that we want to do differently next time. The last part, I for interesting, those things that you just didn't see happening. Could be maybe down in the sell part of the funnel when we're presenting to the buyer and the buyer says, go, oh, that was really interesting. Didn't see that coming as a curveball, didn't see that coming as a question, didn't see that coming as an opportunity. Again, let's capture that because it's worth being aware in future something similar could come up. Yes, we can get into big evaluations, we can organize meetings, we can get a bunch of people in a room, we can create all sorts of 120-step review points. Sometimes just being really pragmatic and looking at under these 3 headings can be super powerful. And again, it's not just limiting to category management, it absolutely can be applied to anything you work on, personal or professional. Good way to keep that cycle of continuous improvement going. Absolutely. And again, everything starts with what's the objective. And I'll be quite challenging back to you. Say, yeah, we can come and do some training, but what do you want as a result of the training? We've got to be held accountable, and you've got to have clarity on what you need. Starts with a conversation, see where it goes.
Amazing. That poll came in, we closed that one down. We've got 75% people on a 5 for taking stuff away from the last 7 sessions, including that, and only 25% are on a 4. So I think we're in the top, the upper higher or upper percentiles there. So I'm quite comfortable with what we delivered, Andy. Thanks very much for this of the 7 days. Really appreciate it. Oh, Andy's gone quiet on me. Andy, say goodbye. You know you want to.
So yeah, I was doing deep reflection. No, thanks for more important. Thank you, Nathan. But actually, thank you to everyone for being there, for their thoughts, their questions. Take the stuff away. Small confidence steps to building on that knowledge that maybe already exists or new knowledge. Yeah, and challenges. Reach out to us. We'd love to have those conversations when the time's right.